Hello, and welcome to this month's episode of Small is Beautiful. It's just me this month, as Laura has had quite a hectic week. She presented a talk at Smashing Magazine in New York, and she also had a product launch this week. So she's taking it easy. And so, what I'm going to do this stream is to repeat a talk that I gave 2 weeks ago at the Wizard Amigos Code Camp online for several reasons. One, it's an update on what we've been working on, which is what this stream is about. And two, because the recording didn't come out very well that they made. So it would be nice to have a good recording of it. So, but this is Small is Beautiful. So you can join me in the studio at https://small-tech.org/studio. I'm not going to be checking that as I'm doing the talk bit of the stream, but then I will afterwards. So if you have a webcam and a microphone and headphones, just feel free to join me in the studio and on the stream, ask some questions live. There is also a chat. So if you are following from Owncast, then there is a chat. And let me try to do this here and bring it on. There we go. So as you can see, Romantic Banak has joined the chat. And I don't know what my name is. I tried to change it to Aral, but it didn't work. So let's see. I'm just going to say hello, everyone. And for some reason, my chat is not working, but we'll be able to see at least the responses here, even though I can't, for some reason, seem to be able to actually chat by clicking in there. Oddness. Yeah, very odd. Anyway, we have people joining. Hello. Hi, Chris. Hi, Rodrigo. And so I'll check that momentarily or afterwards, actually, after my presentation as well. So without further ado, this is a presentation called The Small Web and Why We Need It. So again, hello, my name is Aral, and I have been making things with computers since I was about 7 years old. So over about four decades that I've been making things with computers. And for the last 8 years or so, I've been doing so at the Small Technology Foundation. That's at small-tech.org. So what is small technology? Small technology is everyday tools for everyday people designed to increase human welfare, not corporate profits. So that's why we exist. Basically, about 7-8 years ago, I found it very difficult to, ignore the inequalities that we were creating in mainstream technology. Edward Snowden's revelations had just, come out, and I just couldn't ignore all of the toxicity that was being generated by our so-called industry, right? And surveillance capitalism and this business model that we have of people farming. So, but what is small technology? Perhaps in a bit more detail, well, there are the small technology principles. Small technology is easy to use. Now, this probably goes without saying, but it doesn't, especially if you look at the free and open source world. It's getting better, but we have a history of creating unusable things. So very important that the things we make are easy to use, or else no one's going to use them. These are personal technologies we're talking about. We're not talking about building things for corporations, for enterprises, and then magically somehow they trickle down into usable things for everyday people. No, because they rarely do. Just like trickle-down economics, trickle-down technology doesn't really work. And they are private by default. This is really important. They're not private by configuration. I'm looking at you, Mozilla. So when you download an app, let's say, it doesn't violate your privacy by default, but then says, actually, we care so much about your privacy. So if you go into the settings, and there are so many settings that you can set to actually protect your privacy. But what are you doing by default? Oh, we're violating your privacy. Okay, right, no, right? The things we make are share alike. This goes to licensing, of course. So what is share alike? It doesn't mean that we use Creative Commons share alike licenses for everything. It means for code, for example, that we use the AGPL license for what we do. Why? If you've ever looked into licensing and just asked people in the open source world about it, you've probably heard, some horror stories about, AGPL or GPL, these kind of frightening stories about how they're viral in nature, which kind of sounds like they have COVID. What does it mean to be viral? Well, they're not viral. What AGPL and GPL licenses and copyleft licenses in general say is, if you take from the commons, if you take from something that's freely available that other people have made freely available, it's only polite to give back to the commons, right? So why are so many people kind of uncomfortable with this? Well, because they want to take from the commons, they want to take what other people have made available, and then they want to enclose it. They want to build a fence around it. And they want to say, the additional stuff that I built on top of this thing that you shared with me, thank you so much for sharing it, I'm not going to share that back with you, right? And so what can happen here? Let's say a bunch of us got together, we worked on something and we put it out there into the commons, but we used a liberal license like MIT. Then a company, maybe a startup with a few million in venture capital, can come and say, oh, that's so nice. Yeah, we're going to take this and then we're going to spend a couple of those $1 million that we have. And we're going to build on top of it and we're going to make a separate product. And the stuff on top, though, we're not going to share that back. No. So you can see why they want to do that. And you can see why maybe we want to stop them from doing that, and hence share alike. It's only polite, right? You take from the commons, you should give back to the commons. So it's not viral. It's just being polite. So the technologies we build are peer-to-peer. That's our goal. What does that mean? Well, they're not hierarchical in nature. If you look at centralized systems, if you look at big tech, if you look at Silicon Valley, there are always these centers and we're all attached to these centers, right? Facebook says, hey, we connect you to one another. Lie. They connect everyone to Facebook Incorporated or to Meta nowadays. We don't. The stuff we build is peer-to-peer, which means that individuals own and control it and they can talk to one another without going through intermediaries or gatekeepers or these centralized silos. The things we make have to be interoperable. Why? So that no one gets locked into just, our organization. So we're a small technology foundation. We're a not-for-profit. But still, if we make tools which when the tools become more and more successful, as more and more people start using it, if we ourselves, our organization becomes bigger and bigger and wealthier, we've created a centralized system. And if what we're making is proprietary, then we've locked all those people into what we're making. So interoperability means, well, you should be able to maybe start using a service that we're running, an instance of whatever it is that we're building, but then you should be able to move over to some other provider at some point, maybe a different host, for example, if it's a server. So interoperability is very important. The stuff we build has to be zero knowledge, as in we don't just collect data and say, hey, don't worry, we'll keep it safe. Well, if we don't have to collect the data, then we shouldn't collect the data, right? Data minimization, zero knowledge. And most of the time, you can design things so you don't have to collect the data unless you have a financial incentive in collecting the data. The stuff we build is non-commercial as well. I think that's really important. The only goal in the world isn't just to make profit and become a billionaire, right? We're trying to build things for the common good, not necessarily because we're altruistic, but maybe because we believe that as more people build things for the common good, by definition, it benefits all of us. So I think there's a longer-term self-interest at play here. So it's not necessarily because we're like, oh, we're such good people, we just want to build things for everyone. We're part of everyone. And if we build things that make everyone better off, we are better off. Okay, that makes sense to me. So these are some of the small technology principles. Another very important one is that the stuff we make is non-colonial, or that we are non-colonial in our approach. What does that mean? We don't start off from a position of we know what's good for everyone, or that the things we make will fit everyone's needs. No, we can only design for ourselves. We can only design for people that are similar to us. We cannot design for a culture or a people that we've never met on the other side of the world. Right? Silicon Valley does this all the time. They're like, "Here, our tools are universal. They're for everybody." But it's a bunch of white guys in a room somewhere in Palo Alto or something that are making them. Right? Do you even understand the needs of the people in the places that you're exporting these things? No, that's a very colonial mindset. You're like, hey, they should basically use the stuff we make, and it should be good for them, and they should adapt. If it's not, maybe they're holding it wrong, sort of thing. So yeah, we can do better than that. If we acknowledge that the things we make are limited in scope, and if we make them free and open, for example, as we do with everything that we're working on, others can take them and adapt them for their own communities, for their own cultures, in ways that maybe we didn't even imagine. And finally, we attempt as much as possible to make the things that we make inclusive, right? To people with a range of abilities, for example, and these two things, being non-colonial and inclusive, are not at odds. What inclusivity means is that you actually acknowledge that maybe you are not the only person that exists, right? Like an able-bodied, middle-aged white cis guy. And so we take into consideration inclusivity while we're designing from the very beginning. So these are the small technology principles. And it really all boils down to respect. Respect for three things. Respect for human rights at its very core. Respect for human effort in the things that we make. So we ensure that the things we make are usable, for example, and functional, because we respect the effort of the people who are going to use them. Remember, the things we make are everyday things used by everyday people. And the experiences that we have, both with people and with things, determine the experiences we have in life. So if we have a string of good experiences with people, or maybe with the things that we're creating, and increasingly we're having experiences with things, right? Then we have a good day. We have a good week. Maybe we have a good life. If we don't, on the other hand, maybe we have a bad day, a bad week, a bad life. So we have a responsibility as the people who make things to make sure that we respect the effort of the people who use the things we make. Sometimes that means that we have to spend more effort on our end in order to do that. And finally, we can go beyond just usability and functionality to respect human experience. How do we layer delight on top of these things? How do we make these experiences wonderful experiences? So this is actually the Ethical Design Manifesto, which we released when we were known as INDIE, IND.IE. So what kind of things do we make? Well, maybe it's easier to talk about the kind of things we don't make, first of all, which, of course, to begin with, is not centralized big tech. So, small tech is the exact opposite of big tech. So, of course, we don't make centralized things. Of course, our goal is not to become billionaires. If we became billionaires one day, we would have abjectly failed. And don't worry, you don't accidentally become a billionaire. If you become a billionaire, you know exactly what you've been doing, and you're okay with a system in which billionaires exist. In fact, you are benefiting exponentially from such an unequal system. Then if we're not building, Web 2.0, if we're not building these centralized systems, are we doing Web 3? Are we about blockchain? Are we about the metaverse or NFTs? No. We are about the opposite of all of these things. In fact, we released the Web Zero Manifesto, webzero.small-web.org, in which basically it's a very simple manifesto. We have a lot of manifestos, clearly. But basically, if Web3 is about decentralization and blockchain and NFTs and the metaverse, well, what happens if we take that bullshit away, the blockchain, NFTs, and the metaverse? Well, we just get left with decentralization, right? And that's Web Zero. That's what we call Web Zero. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little reactive, but that is what it is. Also, I've noticed there's this trend of startups, etc., who are saying, well, privacy is dead. All this data is being collected. Maybe you should benefit from this collection. You should get a piece of the pie. And this is so short-sighted. This is not what we're about. This is so short-sighted because if something is toxic, you don't want to then get rewarded for this toxicity, right? If this also means that we don't understand the nature of data. Right? So data about people, if you have enough of it and you have the right algorithms, begins to approach people, right? I don't call this business model people farming for nothing. We're farming people. And why are we doing that? Because if we have all of this data, if we have the right algorithms, we start creating very valuable proxies of people. We start creating simulations of people. And these are valuable because we can use them to manipulate their behavior, to make ourselves richer if we're Silicon Valley, right? If we're big tech, if we're mainstream technology, that's what we do. That's our business model, people farming. So to say, okay, well, this is the norm, we can't change this, maybe, individuals should benefit from this as well. It's kind of like saying, well, you shouldn't be indentured, you shouldn't be indentured because you should benefit from selling yourself. I don't know, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. At all. I think we can do better. We can do far better than thinking of everything as a value proposition and everything as a value exchange within this system that we have. So no, this is not what we're about. And finally, we're not blockchain oil salespeople. I don't think I need to say any more about that. We're not about creating Ponzi schemes or pyramid schemes or pump and dump schemes and benefiting from that. It's so sad that the people who are about these things have pretty much captured the narrative around decentralization. Whereas those of us who are working on it because of human rights, because we believe that it's in the best interests of humanity, we have a uphill struggle now because now it's all about Web3 and these things. So we're about the small web. We are working on building the small web, small-web.org. There's not a lot there, but I'm going to show you where we are with that in this talk. So the small web, what is the small web? Well, imagine that everyone on the face of the planet had their own place on the web. How would that change things? What could we do if that was the case? And maybe more importantly, how can we incentivize the web to go in that direction? That's what the small web is about. So have a think about that. What we're working on right now are developer tools, so tools for developers who can then use these tools to build the everyday tools for everyday people that we need in order to reach this goal. Now, I've been saying everyday tools, everyday people, especially the everyday people part. I don't want you to misunderstand that. Again, especially in the free and open source world, we have this kind of, misconception that these people are somehow dumb or stupid. They're not, right? When I say everyday people, I'm talking about brain surgeons, right? They have brain surgery in the morning, so they don't have time to mess with your unusable piece of crap. It's not because they're stupid. So we have to really, check our arrogance at the door here. If we're building things that are unusable, we're the ones who are stupid, right? We're the ones who need to try harder. We're the ones who need to be making more of an effort, not the brain surgeon. The brain surgeon's pretty clever. We can probably, or the astronaut, or these are the everyday people using the things that we make. So I think it's very important to kind of, make sure we know where we stand in this sort of thing. Yes, we're experts in our own field, but just because someone is not an expert in our field, or just because they're not an enthusiast or a hobbyist in our field, doesn't make them stupid, right? If we think that, we're stupid. And more importantly, we're not going to be able to change things in the direction I think that some of us want to, if that is our mentality. If we feel that there have to be rites of passages, that these people have to care so much that they have to put in so much effort in order to use the tools that we make, we're the ones who are going to fail. Because they're not going to do that, not because they're stupid, because they have brain surgery in the morning. So the first tool that I'm working on is called Kitten. And Kitten is a server/framework for the web, for the small web, and which in a lot of ways removes all of the complexity that the big web has. And it does that in a number of ways, the most important of which is on the small web, we build sites for one person. We don't build sites for users, or more precisely, in order to gather as many users as we can and serve them things, right? We only build sites for one person, single tenant sites. For which person? The owner of that site. So Kitten is optimized for that. Now, if you remove this whole concept of users, for one thing, you remove an othering, but at the same time, you also remove a huge amount of complexity from the equation. And we need to do that in order to match the experiences that people have on the big web, and maybe exceed them as well. So simplicity is our weapon of choice. Complexity is theirs. Why? Because we don't have the resources, for one thing, right? So if you have tens of thousands of people working at an organization, then complexity is your friend, right? It also means that it keeps other people, smaller players, out because they can't match your level of complexity. It means that you have to specialize in roles, that people have to specialize in roles, and that means that they are they have to work at your organizations. They can't necessarily do things by themselves anymore. If you make a framework so complex, for example, that people become specialists in aspects of it, or if your whole system is so complex that someone has to be a database specialist, someone has to be a back-end specialist, someone has to be a front-end specialist, you're also tying them to working at your corporation or to similar corporations if they want to practice their craft, because they can't necessarily do it by themselves because the whole system is so complex. So simplicity is our weapon, right? If we want to change things. And that's where Kitten comes in. So how does it work? First of all, you adopt a Kitten. Right now, it's just a line that you can put into your terminal, or you can clone the repository, install it yourself. If you don't like piping things into your shell, I understand. It's perfectly fine. And then you feed it some code, of course. This is actually a web root, the entire code for it, for a counter on the back end. I'll do a quick demo of this in a second. But that's all the code you need. All the code you need in total for a very simple website with Kitten. In total, there's no generation, there's no build step, there's nothing, because all you then do is you say Kitten and you run it and you hit your browser, and there you go. In this case, that code that I showed you would print kittens every time you refresh. One more kitten would show in your browser. So let me show you. Let me show you a demo of it working. So I'm just going to go into well, not my browser, actually. Let me go into my terminal instead. That'll be far better. So I just have an empty directory here, and that I created. And I've already got Kitten installed. But if I wanted to install it, I would actually, let me show you. I would just go to the Kitten homepage. So that's at codeberg.org /kitten/app. And if I scroll down here, you'll see the system requirements right now. It is Linux only right now. That might change. I'm going to get it right on Linux first, and then maybe we'll see if other people want to port it, etc. I'm not in a rush for that. And you can do it by wget or curl. So I'll just copy this one. Like I said, it's installed, but there's no harm in reinstalling it. So if I just do that, there we go, installing the runtime binary, all done. There we go. It's also done things like remove the unprivileged ports issue on Linux, which is the only platform that has that ridiculous archaic limitation from the days of mainframes, which is an anti-feature, security anti-feature actually right now. But anyway, it's all ready to go. So Kitten's installed. I can say, for example, Kitten version, and I'll see the version over here. So let's recreate that example that we had. So I'm just going to create in fact, before that, let's do this. I'm just creating an index.html file, okay? And let me edit that index.html file. And let me just say, I don't know, Maybe we'll make it an H1 just to make it a little bit more HTML. I'll just say hello world. Okay. And H1, there we go. And we'll save that. Okay. And let's just go over here and say kitten. All right, kitten's running. Don't worry what this password is about right now. I'll tell you what that is in a second. Don't worry, it's not a security issue. So now I'm just going to go back into my web browser and I'll go into localhost and it just says hello world. Wow, Aral. That's groundbreaking. Of course it's not. But I think it's very important for anything that is a web server to be able to serve a website. And then everything else is a progressive enhancement on top of that. So this might have been a static website from 1993. You throw it in there, Kitten can serve it, right? And I think that's really important. And in terms of approach, that's the whole approach behind Kitten, progressive enhancement, right? And that determines kind of the character of Kitten. So let me show you. So you can do this with any web server, though, right? Not every framework, but any web server, you can do that. Okay, so let's try something different. So I just turned Kitten off, Control C. Let's, instead of index.html, let's rename that to index.page. Okay, so you're going to see this is how Kitten works. One of the core characteristics is it uses extensions. It doesn't require a certain directory structure. It doesn't require you to put static files somewhere, whatever. Like I said, you put a static HTML site, it's going to serve it, right? However, it progressively enhances a regular site by supporting other types of files. One of those is a page file. And the way this is done, if you care, Kitten's written in Node.js, and it's using ESM module loaders. In fact, I'm not even using the loading functionality of ESM module loaders right now. I'm not actually changing the source in any way. I'm just mapping files like .page, and you'll see later .script, etc., to the JavaScript type, which also makes tooling much easier when you want to be able to piggyback on existing tooling. And if you look at how complex the tooling for something like Svelte is, for example, or other frameworks, that again is a simplicity that we can benefit from with limited resources. So I called it index.page, and with pages, there's a lot more we can do. So let me just start by actually creating a root. So I'm going to say export default, and I'll say function. I'm writing it out. You could use arrow functions if you wanted to. Request, response, and that's our root, right? It's a JavaScript. So pages are JavaScript files, and this default function that you export from it is a root. Now you do have, as you can see over here, you have a response and you have a request. I put underscores behind them because we're not going to use those directly in this example. So I could also have just deleted those. I didn't need it. And what I'm going to do here is return something, right? So if I wanted to have the same functionality as before, I would just return an HTML template string here that had h1 hello world, right? So that was what we had from before. So if I go in here and I say kitten, and let me bring my browser up here and I refresh, hello world, right? So same thing, pretty much. Slightly different, though. You probably noticed it kind of just jumped down a little bit, and that's because if I inspect this, let me see if I bring my inspector up here. There we go. You can see that there's a bit more in there. It's written out this template around it, and that's our H1 there. So that's been added there. There is a development socket over here, whatever that is. So, for example, if I now go back into my terminal here And let me go to, let me see, which folder was this? Unfortunately, this terminal app does not have an option for opening up in the same page you're in. Okay, here we are. So if I now edit that page, right, and here we are. If I say hello, I don't know. Let me say hello Fediverse instead. I know there are some folks watching from there, and I save this. You can see that it becomes hello Fediverse. Over here, this is nothing you haven't seen before, of course. But you do have this live reload in the developer experience, which is nice to have. It is live reload. It's not hot module reloading. The way that I'm doing things, there's an opportunity to do some very interesting things because everything we're doing is sending HTML back and forth on the wire. So using things like morph DOM, etc., you can actually make that experience much nicer and not have it lose state when it changes. So I'm going to be doing some of those things. This was the minimum necessary to kind of create a good working environment. The only time when it might be jarring is if you have a modal open or something. So, and again, though, implementing that sort of hot module reloading effect, it's not going to be hot module reloading, but it'll be HTML that's morphed and styles that get injected in, will mean that you are able to maintain state, so a little better developer experience. But that's a detail right now. I've got bigger fish to fry, but that is something that I want to implement in the future. So, okay, well, again, you can do this with anything. It's not that impressive. I know, you're right. Let's do something a little bit more impressive to show you how it's different. So in my function, I can return this HTML here, but let's do that example that you saw in the slides. Let's create a counter, a server-side counter, okay? So first of all, let me just say let count equals 1. And we'll make this a kitten counter, of course. You know, why not when we can, if we can. So I'm just going to, let me just change this. And, I should have done this earlier. Let me open up my character table here and choose little kitten. Where's my kitten? Which kitten do I want? There's a nice kitten. Let's copy that kitten over. Okay. And let me just paste that kitten in there. Okay. But I want that kitten to display count number of times. So I'm just going to say, here we go. I'm just going to say dot repeat count, and then I'll close that. And is that all we need? Yeah, it is all we need. I just saw it because I can see my browser. But if I bring my browser up here, you can see there's my one kitten. If I refresh, oh, it's still one kitten. Why? I'm sure you all caught it. I forgot to actually up the count. There we go. Let's up the count. And if I bring my browser back here and I refresh, you can now see, we have lots of kittens. Okay, so a bit more impressive because it is dynamic functionality. Ooh, I had my whole join us in the studio thing over my video. Oh, well, anyway. And a bit more impressive, no one's joined us in the studio, by the way, or me. I can see that. I can see it. The studio is empty. If you want to, please feel free. So I'm refreshing and it's keeping state on the server. However, of course, if I go back here and let me go back to my kitten and I turn it off and on again, and then I go to the web browser, it's back to 1, as you can see. Okay, so it's lost state, of course, because it's only being ephemerally kept in memory. Okay, so what if we didn't want that? What if we wanted it to be a bit more persistent? Okay, let's take a look at that. Let's open up index.page. How would we do this? Well, here's how I would do it in a very simple example, like this one. So I'm going to say if db.kitten equals, let's say, undefined. Or I can just say, I can be lazy. I can say if not db.kitten, I'm going to say db.kitten equals count 1. Ooh, somebody's popped into the into the studio. Yay! All right, Ty, I'll bring you in a second. Just gonna finish up on this bit of it. But that's nice. There's someone in the studio. Yay! All right. So, and yeah. All right. So db.kitten equals count 1. So what do I do now? Instead of count plus plus, I can just say db.kitten.count plus plus, right? And it's telling me that there is an error there. It is wrong because if I go back out and in, that error is gone. This sometimes happens with Helix Editor. Okay, so we've done that. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to get into my browse, bring my browser back, refresh, and there's nothing. Okay, all right, that's interesting. Not what I expected. So what's going on? Do we have any errors? We don't have any errors. Okay, db.kitten is count 1, db.kitten count plus plus, export default function. Am I missing anything? No, not that I can see. So what's going on? Am I in the right place? Yes. Okay. So let's go back here. Oh, did I say no? That should work as well. Let's see what's going on. All right. This is, whoops, not what I expected. Here we are. Okay. Let's see. HTML, repeat, db.kitten.count plus plus. Oh, actually, let me just see something, and then I'll get back to why that is. This is changing every day as well. So, nope, that is not working either. Yeah, db.kittens equals 1. Oh, sorry, and kittens, of course, that would help. Okay, yeah. So I will let you know why that happened, but for now, you can see that that's working. And if I just move my terminal out of the way, you see it's working. Now, if I bring my terminal back and I quit the server, restart it again, you can see that the kitten count remains because that's a database. What happened? I don't know. My own framework is what happened. So there is a special database table on the DB database called kitten, where kitten-specific stuff is. So don't call the one table name you shouldn't use is db.kitten when you're making your own stuff. Okay, so that's it, and I did it. Because I don't know my own framework. And like I said, it's just being, I'm building it, I'm changing it right now. It's very, very early, so things will break, and it's not stable yet. But, you just saw that we do a couple of things with very, very little code. There's no build process. So I hope you get a feeling for how Kitten works. Now let's do one other thing. What if, okay, this is a very simple example, right? But what if we have a more complex example? So I'm just going to go to codeberg.org/Aral persisted kitten chat. So I have an example that I did here, which is a bit more complex. You can see there's an index.page, but there are things like chat.socket, status indicator component, message component. So you can see in Kitten, everything is with extensions. So message component, what is that? Well, it's just JavaScript, right? It's a little component here, and it displays the message nickname and the message text for a chat. Okay, what's a chat socket? Well, that's just a WebSocket root, and that manages the WebSocket. So this is all in the documentation. You can look in there, but this is a more convoluted, complicated example, right? Which is a real-time chat. So what I want to show, and you can see here, I'm using components, status indicator over here, for example. And I don't know, there's some other components here somewhere that I'm using. So it has components as well, but everything is just JavaScript. Everything is just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And all of these roots are all just JavaScript, right? So, and these are HTML template strings that we're using. So to get a feel for how it is. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is, okay, I've created this nice persistent kitten chat example, and now I want to deploy it. I want to deploy it on the World Wide Web, and want other people to be able to access it. How do I do that? It's actually quite simple. So I'm going to show you in my terminal. I'm going to SSH into a demo web server that I created right before this presentation, and I'm in there now. And there's nothing there. So let me just show you. There's just a SSH folder, etc. It's just a plain server, right? There's nothing there. Kitten does not exist, right? All right. So let's get Kitten, like I showed you. And let's set up this server. So kitten/app on Codeberg. Just going to scroll down there, get that URL. wget, I believe, is installed on Ubuntu. So let's just paste that in there. Installing. And we're done. Okay, so Kitten's installed on the server. This is a live server at demo.small-web.org. Kitten's installed, but how do I now install this example that I had, the persisted kitten chat example? Well, here's what I do. I go over here into the source code and I click HTTPS and I copy that Git URL, okay? And then I go into terminal and I say kitten deploy, if I can spell it right. And then I enter that Git URL, okay? And I press enter. Done. It's up and running. So I now go into my web browser and I go to demo.small-web.org. The first hit takes a little longer because what it's doing there is it's provisioning your TLS certificates, your security certificates for the server using Let's Encrypt automatically. And once that's done, we'll see, oops, that's always fun. Let's see why that happened. That shouldn't happen. Oh, I hope I haven't hit a Let's Encrypt rate limit because I was testing this earlier today. Come on, you can do this. Or maybe this is just nope, that was an unhandled error. I'll have to look into why that's happening. But here we go. It's up and running. And you can actually hit this URL right now if you're watching. Go and hit it. And you will see that it works. I'm going to give myself a nickname, Aral. Hello, everyone. So many chats, so little time. There we go. Let's see if anyone else joins here. Just go to demo.small-web.org and you'll be able to join the chat. Let me make this a bit bigger. Oops, maybe a little smaller. There we go. Don't have a lot of screen real estate on here. Let's see if anyone joins. We're just waiting for people to join. Come on. You can do it. Send me a message. I know you're out there. I know you're watching. Come on. One little message just so that we can see that it works. Ha! Ty to the rescue again. Thank you so much. It works. Yeah. So yes. There we go. It works. Ha ha ha. Okay. Hi. Hi, Topika. All right. So that's an example of, let me get rid of this code now. I don't need it. So that's how you deploy stuff. Again, this is for developers right now. Nobody's going to set up their server and set up their domain name service to point to that server and then do what I just showed you. What I just showed you was easy. Nobody's going to do the setup for that, right? Which brings us to what I'm working on alongside Kitten, what I'm working on with Kitten and building in Kitten, which is domain. So what is domain? Well, let me show you very quickly. In fact, actually, let me just bring the terminal back. Let me exit from that SSH session. And right now, actually, that will probably kill the chat. Let's make sure. Oh, no, it hasn't. Oh, good, good. All right. Is it dead? Yes, it is. Okay, it should have killed it. There we go. Okay, so what is domain? Let me just show you what that is. Over here, I'm in domain app. I'm just going to run kitten. I'm going to stop kitten here and then run kitten so that it actually runs. And in my browser, let me just go to localhost. So make this a little smaller here. This is what everyday people would see if they went on domain. I want my own kitten. That could be any app at domain.small-web.org for 10 euros a month. Your place will be ready in under a minute. Get started. You enter your credit card details in this case, and you have your own site. What's more interesting is, let me go into the admin over here. And let me just get the password for the admin. Oh, I'm already signed in. Okay, that's fine. If I was signed out, I just have the password that's generated by Kitten for you. And this is what a domain administrator would use. So what is domain? Domain is a tool for organizations and maybe individuals to become small web hosts. To remove the bit you didn't see from the equation where I was setting up that demo server and pointing my domain name to it, so that everyday people can just set up their own places on the small web. Now, we don't want to be the only people that they can do that through. So I'm creating domains so any organization can become a small web host. What does that require? It requires an account with a VPS provider, requires an account with a DNS provider with an API, and requires your domain to be on the public suffix list so that second level domains can be used like top level domains, but outside of this kind of commercial system. So let me just go in here and show you that. This is the administration panel. So you can set up, for example, your virtual private server account with Hetzner and then enter your API token here. Initially, we're supporting DN Simple. You enter your domain, your account ID, and your access token here. It checks whether you're on the public suffix list or not. This is a private instance right now, so it doesn't even have to be. But for public instances, it does. And then this is not complete yet, but you can use no payment provider if it's a private instance and you're doing it for your neighborhood, for example, or for your friends. You want to be a small web host. Could be tokens. You could maybe pre-generate tokens. Let's say you're a city and you want your citizens to have places on the small web. Maybe you can pre-generate tokens and mail them out to all your citizens. We did a pilot study of this with the city of Ghent a few years back, before all this existed. Or you can use Stripe if you, like us, initially we need to be sustainable. So we're going to start charging for that. And we're going to charge something like 10 euros a month for a site if you want to have it through us. So that bit I'm still working on. And then you'll be able to create places from the administrator as well. But everyday folks would just see this main interface where they just go, I want like aral.smallweb.org. Okay, get started. And then that would just prompt them for their credit card details. And then it would set up Kitten or applications built on Kitten at their own domain at small-web.org. And then they could later point some other domain if they wanted to it. Again, it's all interoperable. And so that's it. That's what I'm working on with domain on there. So I think that's it for this presentation, which is good because I believe the feed is stuck. Oh, here we go. It's back. So yeah, and so basically that is all I have on this topic. Let me just check the chat and then I'll bring Ty in, who's been waiting at the, let's see the chat, see if we've missed anything here. Folks are joining. Lots of people have joined the chat. Where can I find later the recording? I will put it up on the small-tech.org website with the others. Oh, Gabe is there. Hey, Gabe. Gabe's the author of Owncast, which we're using to actually broadcast this. Excellent. Folks are sharing it. This is so nice. This is all on the Fediverse, of course. That's where it's happening. And I don't think anyone's asked a question yet. So we'll keep that up there. But Ty, can I add you to the stream? Give me a thumbs up if I can. Okay, here we go. 2 thumbs up. Hello.
Hey, audio good?
Audio good. Yeah, I can hear you.
Sweet.
How you doing? Thanks for
Uh,
joining.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been doing good. Pretty interesting week this week. Yesterday, I
Yeah.
spent time at TechCrunch Disrupt, and then spent some time at the Internet Archive where they're kicking off Democracy's library stuff. So just the two sides of San Francisco.
Okay. Nice. Nice. And quite a difference there, isn't it, with those two?
Yeah. I got a free ticket to TechCrunch Disrupt from like
Right.
getting laid off in June. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting like, what that badge gets you access to, which is not the main stage.
Really? Well, anyway, why am I surprised about anything? I mean, TechCrunch, you're talking big tech through and through. You're talking Silicon Valley, venture capital. That's that world.
Yeah.
Was there anything interesting you saw?
I think the coolest thing, I didn't actually talk to them because their booth was always kind of busy, but there's like one company that has like some doll that you can like teach girls to like code with. So it has like a bunch of just like LEDs and stuff. I didn't actually talk to them yet, but that's the one thing
Oh
that really caught my eye.
gosh. Oh, alarm bells, alarm bells, alarm bells, because they're at Disrupt, right? So they
Yeah,
have venture capital. So that they're not going to make their money by teaching young girls, I don't know if that was their audience, to code. They're going to make their money by spying on them, right?
yeah,
By gathering data on them. We had this before with like the Barbie doll or whatever, and that was gathering data. I don't know whatever happened to that, but yeah, yeah, very scary. That's the thing. These things could be great. These things could be amazing if we didn't have these toxic business models attached to them. If they were just what they said on the tin and nothing more, then yes, I would be gushing right now. I'd be like, that is so cool. Instead,
yeah,
I'm going, oh, what are they going to do with that? What are they going to actually do with that?
yeah. That's true.
Which is so sad. That's what's so sad about it, because there's so much potential. And Internet Archive, you said.
Yeah. So they're kicking off like Democracy's library. So just the fact that like the lies are free, but the truth is paywalled, and like just all of
Right.
this like governments and all this information is kind of out there, but then getting suppressed and stuff. So just how do we kind of like move forward as like a global society to get everybody access to like information
Right.
and the truth? So they were kicking off that initiative yesterday and had a big party for it. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we saw Gabe
Anything
there last
interesting
night.
from there?
Just kind of hanging out and like catching up with people that I was like friends with from like D Webcamp and stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
Cool. Cool. And for those of you watching, we actually, our last show, yeah,
yeah,
that's what we covered in September's stream. That's what we covered. So you can watch that, and with updates from the decentralized webcam, D webcam,
yeah.
etc. So yeah, what did you think of the demos that I mostly did not screw up?
I think it's really cool. And like, again, like, I think we're kind of like working in like complementary spaces. Like you're tackling a lot of things that I don't want to be like worried about. Like most
I
people
don't
just
want to be worried about a meter.
know, right? I'm
Trust
glad
me.
you're pushing it forward. But I have made a lot of progress in the past month. If you want to pull up what I've been playing with, if you want to see it,
Oh yeah, sure, go for it.
do you want to drive it? Is that cool?
I'll, why don't you do it?
Okay.
You want to share your screen?
Yeah.
There we go. See, this is what's so cool. Entirely unexpected. All
All right. Can you see my
right, I'll
screen?
add your screen to the stream. There we
Cool.
go.
So to connect those quick dots between the doll that's spying on you and what
Yeah,
I'm trying to build here. So I want to make that creative suite for kids to do art, music, and coding, right? Starting with
yeah,
the coding piece to do the art and music stuff, so anybody can remix it later.
yeah.
So I press start here, and I don't think the audio is actually going to come through, but this is like a full blown synthesizer that's
Oh wow,
circle of
nice.
fifths. So like as you like click it, you can play it. I can hear the notes right now.
I
Um,
can hear it. Maybe through your microphone. I don't know.
Maybe. So as long as it's going through the stream, that's kind of cool. So right now we're tuned to C major on the outside and A minor on the
Okay, maybe
inside.
put your volume up as much as you can.
On this, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll just pick it up from your mic.
All right.
Oh yeah, I totally can hear that.
Yeah. So we can tune around the wheel. We can go down octaves if we wanted to. Up. Don't want to go too high though because that's going to hurt. But then when you're ready to kind of remix it, you can. And here's all of that source code for you. So if you wanted to copy and paste this into say Kitten, You just need to change some of the links to be not pointing to.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice. Okay. So I can just grab, and that's self-contained?
Yeah. So then when you hit play, we're going to an entirely full new URL here where we have a copy of this wheel that we're now able to play. And we made a copy of it. So why don't we just like share that? So if you wanted to scan that QR code right now, you'd be on this copy here, which you also might want to just remix that. So now we're actually going to
see, that's so cool because and again, it's so complimentary. Because one of the things you can do with Kitten, like I showed with the deployment, it's just a Git URL right now. And that's kind of the same idea where you should just be able to go to someone's website and say, hey, actually, I like this. I like the app that's running here. Of course, the data is theirs, but I like the app. I want to have a copy of it. Just put in their URL and you'll be able to do that in the future because it's going to actually it's going to host the source in its own Git repository on the server. So every server is also going to have its own source hosted there. So of course you can put it on, Codeberg or anywhere else you want to, but your site will have a copy of the source. So we're talking about view source. Well, how about, view repository as view source? And then you'll just be able to get it from there. And I think that's also maybe in a way, not necessarily solving the whole issue with centralized distribution. But maybe in a way, because of course you're going to have your upstreams and stuff. And when the upstream is updated, the downstream gets updated, and that's how apps are going to auto update. But yeah, I mean, I love what you're doing with that. Because it's definitely the same sort of thinking, the web should be read write. The web should be remixable.
100%.
And yeah, so very, very exciting. Very exciting. Where can people go to learn more about that?
Sillies.computer is the best way.
Sillies.computer. Do you want to put it on your screen? Oh, wait. Let's see. I'll make you full screen. Here you go. I'll make you full screen. Around. There you go. There's a QR code. It's SILLYZ.computer. And there's a QR code even that you can scan. You came prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I've been walking around TechCrunch Disrupt, so I figured I might as well at least have this. But the cool thing is
that's cool.
Screenshot. That's just a screenshot of my thing. I just removed the labels and then just put it on a card.
Nice. Yeah. That's very cool.
But
awesome.
What you were just saying to some of Mike's work and the work of like the braid.org group. So you were mentioning being able to kind of like deploy from like a Git repository and being able to see that. But since they're working on like the CRDT stuff, like underneath the hood, like we might not even need Git repositories. That could just all be web native, like remixable by getting like that version control and also like the conflicts like resolved and everything. So definitely,
it'll be very interesting to see how these things can play off of each other, etc. I mean, the problem I'm really trying to solve is how do we get people their own place on the web?
Yeah.
And how do we do that with an experience that's comparable to getting an account on a centralized system in terms of ease of use, in terms of the amount of time taken, and these things are not solved problems. Just yesterday I was looking for alternate web hosts because I'm using Hetzner as the backend, as the VPS provider, because they can set up a server in about 10 seconds. And that's actually amazing. Like I haven't seen anyone else do that. And that's key, because there's a big difference between 2 minutes and 10 seconds. I tried a separate provider and it was like 2 minutes. So, trying to get that cost down so that people don't have to pay an arm and a leg for it. These are not code related issues, right? This is kind of much more either business related or more social aspects of it. And I think that's also part of the problem. I think we sometimes think that if we just write enough code, we're going to fix the issue. And it's not about that. It's not just about that. And then, of course, there are people who, don't realize that you have to write code in order to fix the issue as well. So hopefully those two camps can also talk to one another more. But that's it. Yeah. So I don't think we're getting any questions in chat. I'm just going to make myself full screen here so we can see the chat a little better. I definitely can hear that. Oh, great. Yep. Folks could hear you. That's great. Yeah, there we go. Ozone, thank you so much. You're awesome as well. Yeah, I mean, if there aren't any other questions, I think we've reached the hour mark as well. So we could just wind this down. There we go. Let's bring you back. There we
Well, thanks
are.
for having me on real quick and for demoing
Yeah,
it
of
all.
course, of course. And look, anyone else, if you're watching these streams, there's, I'll give you the URL again. Sorry, I kept that on during my demos. I hope they didn't interfere with the text that I was typing. I forget that sometimes, but that's a studio URL. Between streams, that won't work because I keep changing it every week. So you can't just hang out here. But during a stream, if you want to just, hit that URL, come in. If you have a question to ask, if you're working in the area, you want to demo something that you're doing, we're pretty chill. So, please feel free to do that. And again, there is the chat as well on Owncast, which apparently has animated avatars as well, which there you go. So feel free to write questions, etc., in there as well. And let me just get rid of that chat now. There we go. But that's it. So I thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
And good luck with what you're working on. It's very exciting. It's exciting to see people working on stuff along these lines. And like I said, I'm looking forward to, once domain is usable, and Kitten you can play with right now. But once domain is more usable as well, so that we can actually do things like, tell people, hey, just set up your site and follow. This is going to be so important for education as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because providing ways into learning this stuff that doesn't involve learning some ridiculous Facebook framework or ridiculous build systems that may make sense for huge corporations, but don't necessarily for individuals, and definitely don't teach you the basics, the foundations of what we're working with. That doesn't make sense. So I think it'll have a huge impact in terms of education, but also imagine, you're teaching someone this and they can set up their own site like that. It's not just on their computer.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. That the ability to share in that way, I think, is going to be huge as well.
I totally agree. And if I can end on one more thing that I can throw in there. So going
Go
back
for
to
it.
Disrupt today, and this is what I'm walking around with. Got this knob here, right? So
Okay.
I have no idea how this pitch goes, but if I can get anybody to talk to me and if I can get them to look inside of this box, I've got a Raspberry Pi 400 that boots straight into that Silly's computer thing, so you can remix. So this is $100. I think that's the cheapest way that you can start to get that like education side of things. Like
right.
And that boots right into the web.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
No, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got I don't know if I have them at hand, but I've got little tiny, these little tiny single board computers. Not just necessarily Raspberry Pi. There's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I can see us, shipping some of this stuff pre-installed on that you just plug into your router at home. And then we do some sort of a wire guard thing so that you can actually be accessible from anywhere. Kind of like a poor man's ngrok or something. But actually much better with WireGuard. There's so much to be done. Dreamy Tesla says, oops, I was late to class. Don't worry. Well, it wasn't class really. I'll put the recording up and I'll let you guys know where that is. Great. Jolly, God, I'm not even going to, Vesperaya says, I'm really interested in domain. Very cool project. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'm working on it as hard as I can. So hopefully, within weeks, not months, fingers crossed, there'll be something that maybe more if you can use. So yeah, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. See you later. And next month, third Thursday, as always, will be our next stream, and Laura will hopefully be back for that. Until then, thank you so much for joining. And Dreamy Tesla says, thanks. Thank you, Dreamy Tesla. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to support what we're doing, I keep forgetting this. It's always an afterthought. But I guess it shouldn't be. If you want to support what we're doing, you can always go to small-tech.org and then /fund us there. And you can support us with a donation or become a patron from there. But otherwise, thank you for watching. And I've been Aral Balkan, and this has been Small is Beautiful. Take care. I'll see you again next month, if not before. Bye-bye.